Thank you very much, Madam President. And before I speak on my formal comments, I just want to say one thing. I know the Senator from New York was here just a little bit ago talking about the Stock Act. She made an incredible presentation to us in the Homeland Government Services Committee, and I am grateful that she is moving forward on that. We actually added a piece to the Stock Act, which I think makes it even more, a lot stronger than it is now, by making sure that as officials report their transactions, that they are done electronically and searchable. So that means anybody in this country can go to the website of the Senate and find the information about their senator. As you know, as a new candidate and a person in this office, as I was, our disclosure forms, when we file them, they're sent to the Senate clerk, and then if you want them, they got to copy them and send them off to someone else. You can't search for them, you can't get them, which is unbelievable. So we made sure in the committee that if we do this act, I think it's a strong act, it's something we should do, that we make sure it is searchable, available electronically in this age we live in today. I already put my disclosure form on my website. I have put it on there since the day I came in the office, because I think people need to know exactly what their senators' investments are, who they get, if they have spouses. In my case, my spouse, all her information is on there, even though I'm not required to do it. I put it on there because I think people need to know the household income of their senator and where it comes from and where their investments are. We over-report. Actually, there's times when, as I fill them out, we have an attorney review them. They always tell me you're giving too much information. And so I have to remind them that's what I'm doing. That's the way I think it should be done. So again, I congratulate the senator from New York who was here for the work on the Stock Act, and I'm glad that I could participate in making it even stronger. Madam President, I seek the floor to speak about my residents of Alaska, a state that constantly overcomes adversity in their tough winters, and this year has been a tough winter. Alaska's history is marked by stories of people coming together to overcome extreme hardships and save their communities. None is more memorable than the 1925 Serum run, where diphtheria ravaged the remote Arctic community of Nome. The needed vaccine was raced to the community by a team of 20 mushers and some 150 sled dogs. They faced brutal February weather and extreme cold, where winds and snow drifts, and carried their precious cargo of the vaccine some 700 miles in just 5.5 days. It's a speed record that's never since been broken, and it saved the community. The feat is memorialized today by the 1,000-mile Iditarod sled dog race, known as the last great race on Earth. This year, the city of Nome faced a 21st century challenge, the need for energy. The fall fuel barge, the last scheduled before winter set in, was blocked. First by a mammoth October storm which swept up western Alaska, and then by heavy sea ice. The barge had to turn back, but without the delivery, Nome would run out of fuel by March. Nome is not connected by road, and the earliest the next barge would arrive would be this June. Flying in 1.3 million gallons of fuel would have taken 300 flights and would have boasted the cost of already an expensive gasoline and home heating fuel to over $9 a gallon. As you can see here, the price of fuel in the community right now is over $5 a gallon. Instead, the Sitnasak Native Corporation and Vitus Marine proposed to do what never has been done before: bring over 1 million gallons of diesel fuel and gasoline to Nome in the dead of winter. They contracted with a Russian flag tanker, the Renda, and which was ice-capable and double-hulled. And to ensure the safety of the delivery, the Coast Guard immediately recognized it had a mission and the right equipment. The Coast Guard Icebreaker Healy had just completed a lengthy scientific tour off the Arctic. Rather than return home, they stayed on the job as winter set in, breaking open lanes through the ice to allow the tanker to arrive. The Healy and the Renda encountered conditions more severe than anticipated: colder temperatures, wind strong, ice thicker. Some days their progress was frozen, literally, but the Healy pressed on through the ice, and with the determination which is the hallmark of the United States Coast Guard, they succeeded. They didn't make it to Nome Harbor, which was frozen solid, but close enough to top off the city's fuel tanks through a half-mile long hose. Now they're on their way back home. but not out of the ice yet. The Healy and the Renda still have several hundred miles before they reach open water. I take to the floor today to offer my thanks and congratulations to Captain Beverly Havlick and the men and women aboard the Healy for a job well done. Also the crew of the charter tanker, the Renda, and many others who helped ensure the transfer of fuel was safe. Workers from the Sitnasock Corporation, the Vitus Marine, the city of Nome, the state of Alaska, and others who played their part. Even the University of Alaska researchers who flew aerial drones to inspect ice conditions in advance of the approaching vessels. Together, they proved winter operations are possible even in the most challenging circumstances. Madam President, I speak today not just to congratulate all those who pitched in to help refuel this community, but to consider its broader implications and lessons. First, America is an Arctic nation. The residents of cities like Nome and Kotzebue and Barrow and numerous smaller villages thrive in the often challenging, rich Arctic environment. The Alaska Native peoples have thrived in the Arctic for generations, for thousands of years, living off the resources of the land and sea. Second, the Arctic offers much to our nation. Its offshore oil and natural gas is our most promising energy province, which is actively being considered by the industry. Trade routes over the top are increasingly being explored by shippers eager to cut off 40% off trade routes between the East and the West. Yet while we are an Arctic nation, we lack the basic infrastructure to serve its people, to fulfill our responsibilities and take advantage of its opportunities. But it's not just me saying it. Just today, the Northern Waters Task Force released a report calling for better Arctic infrastructure. The Healy is our nation's only operational polar icebreaker, and it's only rated as a medium-duty vessel. Our two heavy-duty icebreakers are both idle. The 36-year-old Polar Star is being retrofitted and should be operational again soon, but it's been proposed to send her sister ship, the Polar Sea, to the scrap heap. Since taking office, I've repeatedly called for recapitalizing the nation icebreaker fleet. A comprehensive Coast Guard study recently found that 6 to 10 icebreakers are needed just to meet the Coast Guard's statutory responsibilities. Until we have a firm plan to meet these needs, I've introduced legislation with Senator Cantwell to halt the dismantling of the Polar Sea until all options can be considered. Madam President, without icebreakers, we can neither meet our responsibilities nor take advantage of our opportunities as an Arctic nation. We are falling behind Arctic nations like Russia, China, who is not an Arctic nation, but building icebreakers, Canada, and others as well. Russia is building year-round Arctic port. Canada is conducting military operations, and as I mentioned, China is building new icebreakers. America must build its Arctic infrastructure, such as a deep-water port, to maintain our national presence as other nations stake their claims to the Arctic. We need to maintain spill response capabilities, enhance communications, track the increasing vessel traffic using polar routes, strengthening communication, and the base scientists who are researching the changing Arctic ecosystems. In addition to the infrastructure, we need the legal framework to support our Arctic presence, and that means ratification of the Law of the Sea Treaty. We need a robust scientific program to track changes to the Arctic, which in the past has operated like a global air conditioner. But scientists say, and the residents of the region confirm, the Arctic is warming. And as its ice packs diminish, it is changing our weather. The National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, says that there were a record 12 weather disasters in the United States, costing more than $1 billion each in 2011. The hurricane force storm that blocked the fuel delivery to Nome isn't the only unusual severe weather facing my state. South Central Alaska has had, and I'll repeat this when I say it, 24 feet of snow. 24 feet of snow so far this winter. The cities of Cordova and Valdez know a thing or two about heavy winter snowfalls. but this is an unusual one for them. In Cordova, buildings collapsed and avalanches cut the town off from its airport. That's a true concern, since, like 80% of the rest of Alaska, Cordova is not connected by roads to the rest of the state. The Army and the National Guard sent soldiers and airmen to the scene, and the state of Alaska sent over 100 state responders and heavy equipment to the town by state ferry. The whole town, along with the guardsmen and the state workers, pitched in and worked around the clock to clear the snow off the streets and roofs as another snow and rain system was about to hit. The only problem? Alaskans can be rather enthusiastic and kept breaking every single one of those snow shovels. Eventually, they ran out and had to have more snow shovels shipped in from around the state. Other parts of the state are affected as well. Boats capsized in the fishing port of Kodiak due to the heavy snow. Yesterday, once again, the Coast Guard came and performed their duty. Performed not only one, but two rescues of cruise fishing vessels that sank near Kodiak Island. And NOAA is closely watching the heaviest sea ice in decades in the Bering Sea, which threatens to close important crab fisheries and destroy millions of dollars in fishing gear. Some politicians downgrade public service and say government can't do anything right. I'm grateful for the government's response. I'm grateful to the Coast Guard's response on the Healy, who gave up their holiday with their families to ensure Nome got its fuel. And I'm grateful to the Alaskan National Guard and the state and local governments working to help dig out Cordova and Valdez. Again, I know my time is expired, but I want to say there's no question in my mind the work that the Coast Guard did, the Guard, and many others set us on a course, again, to recognize incredible people who are doing incredible things in our state and around this country. As we continue to look at the vast resources of the Arctic, more of these resources will be necessary. And I know one thing about Americans, about Alaskans: we will be ready to take on the challenges of the future and the future of the Arctic. Thank you, Madam Chair.